mind as we go into this discussion. The pandemic grounded the entire teaching and learning, exercise. We were all shut down. There were no preparations, no warnings. But what happened? There are three key, stakeholders in this enterprise: the administration, faculty, and students. These are the three key, stakeholders in front. The administration were able to use resources to keep the, teaching and learning, the colleges at least open fully online. Faculty got some training, immediate, quick and dirty training from resources from the administration. I want you to consider the students. Who went to their aid? Who helped them? So as you think about this, their families, the community, who helped them during this pandemic? Also think about the fact that students pay their way. For us at Medgar's College, majority of our students are international students, so they are paying their way. They are working full-time and paying. So with this shock, and as we heard from Dr. Ann, who had this wonderful presentation earlier, that the bulk of the students use their smartphones. Smartphones are very efficient, very good, but still limited in terms of, the bulk of materials that they can take a look at, at once. So I just want you to the definition is there. What is digital literacy? The key focus is on the use and, creation of materials, finding those materials, sharing information, and things like that. So the key thing is, how will all this impact student learning? And like I pointed out here, the emergency created by the COVID-19 pandemic destroyed the normal transfer of learning sequence. The faculty-student learning dynamic was disrupted, and students were left to figure things out on their own. Another dimension to this dialogue is the fact that many of the students are first-generation undergraduates with no role models. Think about it. For students to get the most out of technology and, the benefits that it offers, they need to know how to use it to process, to deliver, and receive, digital information. But they were handicapped by the deadly pandemic. Majority of faculty were also blindsided by the virus. Against this chaotic background, institutions of higher education were faced with aligning digital literacy and student success during this deadly pandemic. So here is the problem that, manifested itself. Prior to the pandemic, fully online education was secondary to face-to-face format. Only about 20% of classes were fully online, while 80% were face-to-face. Digital literacy was given a token treatment as a percentage of the entire curriculum and relegated to only the departments of computer information systems and computer sciences. Faculty, students, staff, families, and the communities were not trained for the intensity of fully online education as the only format available during the pandemic. Many students never heard of most of the digital literacy tools used for learning. Both faculty and students were forced to learn the use of computer and digital literacy tools to survive the spring 2020 semester. So this is what we face. The full paper is available for you. The full PowerPoint is also available for you. I'm just going to pick out, some of the problems that, manifested itself. So the key thing, as you can see, these challenges are real and have prompted most institutions to re-examine the concept of student success and what it means to deliver on the expectations and needs of students during a global virus and economic pandemic. Learning has remained virtual, and many institutions are considering making online education a centerpiece of teaching and learning for the foreseeable future. Technology is advancing, the world is moving, but what about the students and their skills? That's the challenge that we have. On the other hand, companies are seeking digitally literate employees to help them maximize production, create new products, and manage the daily business operations. According to Casey and Bruce, 2011, teaching with digital technology prepares students for future participation in an evolving society where new media practices are deeply embedded in the associated structures and processes. To answer this call, students need to be well-versed in digital literacy tools and systems management databases to support companies and businesses within our society. I now pose this question to you, my colleagues. How prepared are faculty, students, and administrators, staff, families, and communities for this challenge? So I will skip the literature because it's right there available for you to check. And I'll be very grateful if you can, take a look at, the literature that was, reviewed, because we did review them. But I want to point out the increased incidences of abuse due to confinement in small spaces, because you are talking about low income, you are talking about underrepresented, you are talking about people who chose face-to-face education, but were forced to fully online, unprepared for it. So the lack of access and, all those things. Black and Hispanic students are more likely to lack adequate access, as noted by Garcia, Weiss, and Engelda, 2020. A Southern Education Foundation report on class and race-based disparities as a result of COVID crisis finds similar disparities in access to resources needed for online learning. It notes that only 1 in 5 African-American students, and a slightly greater share of students in low-income households, have no access to internet at home. Tinubu Ali and Herrera, 2020. It is against this background of all the above challenges that this paper attempts to study ways to better align digital literacy education, its tool, and student academic success. The paper hopes to highlight the needs of closing existing digital literacy education gaps among students, particularly those from low-income and underrepresented, communities. So, what are the questions that emanated from the literature that we reviewed? In today's complex digitally networked environment, the briefly reviewed literature raised pertinent issues. I want you, my colleagues, to focus on how we teach, how we learn, and how we educate our students in the 21st century. We must change, or else we'll be facing an empty classroom, and that's not good. How efficiently have faculty and students adjusted to this sudden pandemic? What educational transformation have occurred? And what impact do all these have on student success? What provisions are being made for faculty and students to improve their skills? What are the current implications and challenges of digital literacy, tools on students' academic success? This paper presents a preliminary effort at aligning digital literacy tools and student academic success. The new normal of connected classrooms, network learning, and digital skills gaps among many faculty and students has made teaching and learning conversations more urgent. So what did we do? Mostly, the present work is an exploratory research based on fundamental investigative, techniques. I looked at the literature, available literature, and I tried to discern the message that was being sent and how that can help, aligning these two variables. And then we actually tried to give students a voice. We interviewed randomly 20 students who registered for face-to-face, but are now forced, into this fully online mode. So the students' voices, expectations, and ideas are what we presented here. So I am sorry, this is not very, very, clear, but it's okay. It's a quick and dirty presentation, and we did the best that we could. 20 students were interviewed in this preliminary study. Of the 20 students interviewed, 65% were full-time and 35% were part-time. The age distribution of the participants as follows. Between the age 18 to 25, we had 5 students. 26 to 35, we had 6 students. 36 to 45, we had 9 students. And 10 of the students were from Brooklyn, 6 lived in the Bronx, and 4 lived in Queens. So the heart of New York City. So the details of the, the discussion is presented here for you. And I'll plead with you to please take a look at the full, PowerPoint. All the students reported that taking fully online courses had a negative impact on them. And they were afraid that they were going to fail their tests and exams. Some of the students were considering dropping out because they felt overwhelmed. And the breakdown is right there for you. As a result of these reported interruptions, some, respondents informed us that they had no access to any working, laptops or computers. They had to go to their friends' home and relatives to do some of their assignments. Can you imagine the pressure that is? And if, they will have full access. So of the 20 respondents, 10 reported that they were greatly affected by COVID pandemic. 7 said that they were considerably affected, and 3 reported that they were slightly affected. 8 of the students reported that their instructors used Zoom as the means of delivery of their virtual class sessions, while 12 reported that their instructors used Blackboard. Some reported that they had access to recorded materials if they missed classes, which was very helpful. So the bottom line is that the most common problems reported by the students included lack of availability of internet when they needed it most, and the interruptions in speed. Many of the students reported that they could not afford the costs of the internet, so they were always having, interruptions, and they suffered from lack of availability of electronic devices to access, the internet. The students reported also that they missed the face-to-face interaction with their professors and classmates. They mentioned that learning online felt unreal and very artificial. And when we probed a little bit, what do you mean by artificial? They replied that teaching and learning was not the same as when they came to class. When asked to summarize what challenges they were experiencing, with their classes, their final responses included the interruptions, cost of, devices and hardware, and so on. When asked what faculty or the college can do to help them succeed academically, their replies included, reduce stress by assigning fewer coursework, provide computers, laptops, and iPads for students, Faculty should be more patient with students. Faculty should explain the assignments more. Faculty should review tests and exams before posting the assignments. The college should train faculty on online skills so that they can better assist the students. And the college should provide more resources to students that can make course materials more accessible. And I will state here that our college and indeed the university has been very fair because they've provided loaner computers and laptops, but the demand exceeds the supply. When students were asked what factors they considered to be the most important for academic success, they mentioned hands-on instruction, faculty quality, and technology availability. From the student's perspective, digital literacy and its tools forced on education by the crisis has resulted in changes to instructional delivery that are here to stay. The students reported that they liked learning online, but they wanted to be trained to use the tools first before the assignments were given. And on, as you can see, this paper discussed the indispensable value of building computer and digital literacy training into all undergraduate curriculum. And this is what I want to plead my colleagues, to think about. We used to treat these technological skills and digital literacy tools as secondary, but now it is a lifeline. Who knows when the next pandemic will happen? So the suggestion is to make this a culture. It does not have to be only computer information systems department or computer science department that will, train the students and give them these skills per se. It will be overwhelming for just these two. But if all the departments see digital literacy tools, skills, and the whole notion of technology, ability to be part of the culture, whether you are learning economics, psychology, or religion, whatever it is you are learning, you must understand that out there in the real world, in the labor market, they need you to be able to use those tools. So we should make it, part of our curriculum. So that's the essence of the point that we're making here. In fact, if I can just get to the conclusion and spend a little time here. Since most of learning is assessed semester by semester, time is of great essence for the students because it is very costly to repeat semester's work due to no fault of theirs. The students' overall GPA for 2019 and 2020 academic year and 2020-2021 academic year may be negatively impacted by the pandemic. The frustrations and stress, if not addressed, may negatively impact the student enrollment in institutions of higher education. The question then becomes, what faculty as a group is willing to do about these outcries from our students and some faculty, because our profession cannot survive empty classrooms if the student enrollment declines are not addressed. Planning, monitoring, assessment, training, collaboration, networking, adequate technical support and sharing is the answer. Embracing digital literacy education and the relevant tools as the culture by all involved in the business of education may guarantee the provision of the skills to withstand most future random shocks. Based on this preliminary study, students think that it is difficult to fulfill the academic competencies with only online education. They would prefer a combination of both online and face-to-face education, hybrid. Based upon faculty responses even, some of my colleagues that we spoke with, many will use hybrid pedagogy, embracing the best aspects of both worlds, thus engaging students in face-to-face class sessions while employing digital literacy tools to enhance teaching and learning. Students will benefit from both worlds of educational practices and therefore increase their academic successes. In the end, we may successfully align digital literacy and its tools with increased student academic success. But remember that funding is decreasing. Grant writing by faculty may be the answer. Time and further research will provide evidence of this. Furthermore, we can increase our knowledge by revisiting these 20 students and checking their grades from spring 2020 and fall 2020 to see if their fears and concerns about their grades were founded. Moving forward, COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that technology is the key to communication and continued teaching and learning in the era of severe economic shocks. Retraining and retooling may help us in our industry. Consequently, a robust digital literacy and tools mastery must be fundamental and a prerequisite for all curricula. Such digital literacy skills foundation must be so strong that it can withstand all crises, no matter what. But faculty and students must undergo pre- and post-digital skills mastery tests that demonstrate such competency. In all evaluation and promotions, we must take note of that. And further exploration and investigation on the alignment of digital literacy and student academic success during future pandemics is an area for more research. I want us to please consider the affordability and accessibility for all students of varied economic background, as this was identified both in literature and from the students themselves. Institutional administration policy level intervention and support are fundamental to the success of any of these programs, strategies, and activities. Making online teaching creative, innovative, affordable, and interactive through user-friendly tools is another area for more research and development. One of the lessons learned from this COVID-19 pandemic is faculty and students' readiness to embrace change and willingness to be oriented on use of different online educational tools. As a result, after the pandemic, when normal classes resume, faculty and students should be encouraged to continue using such digital literacy tools to enhance teaching and learning. This should be a win-win scenario for all involved in the business of education. But more importantly, colleagues, grant writing will provide the much needed resources because state funds continue to shrink. Thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate you and I await your questions, if any. Yes, Professor Myers.